Oh, this is a member of the Voice of Reason coming at you, and I decided I'd sit there and give an explanation as to why everything's happening that's happening lately. Um, you may recognize this image. The image of the teenager wearing the MAGA hat, standing in front of the native elder in Washington D.C., cocking arrogantly, harassing him, and standing in his way as the native elder is trying to peacefully pass by to defuse the situation, while the rest of the youth are pretty much ignorantly laughing and chanting and pretty much mocking him in the process. Well, why is this happening? This is all fear-based actions that they're taught by this man, Donald Trump. Donald Trump and a lot of other rich white men in America today are very scared because they feel their power and influence waning over the American people. This has been going on for quite some time. Donald Trump has been trying to turn back the tide of the inevitable. You see, Donald Trump is not as dumb as people think. He may come off as dumb, but he's not dumb. He's ignorant of what he's allowed to do, and what he's not allowed to do. But one thing's for sure, he's very observant. He's very aware of what's going on around him. Upon taking office, he figured he'd turn back the tide and give the classification of people he falls into the same power they once had. The brash white influence over America, where they could continue to throw money at problems, destroy the environment, push around Native American people, and get away with it in the process. The American public would be completely ignorant of what was going on, and he could ride idly by and continue to behave like America was his own personal piggy bank, which is a practice he's done for years. But now that he's in public office, he quickly found that he can't do that anymore. But Donald Trump is not the only one to blame for this problem. He's not the only one scared and feeling his power waning over the people. Other people in his situation also face the same burden as well. You see, former President George W. Bush also faces the exact same burden, but not because of his clearly stupid actions on 9/11, and not because of his lack of qualification for the job of President of the United States as well, but because decades and decades of his family's actions upon the American people in other countries are now coming to light, and the American people are not ignoring it anymore. You see, a long time ago, this man, Prescott Bush, George Bush's grandfather, prided himself on being the very man who dug up Geronimo's skull and kept it as a trophy for the Skull and Bones fraternity house. He also secretly did not want the people to know that it was his company that mass-produced the toxic gas which was used in Nazi death camps. It was the Bush family's company which mass-produced this toxic gas, which is responsible for thousands, yet millions of women and children, women, and children who did not do anything except for exercise their religion, which did not agree with that of the Nazi Party. You see, Prescott Bush also is responsible for building the railroad track which leads in and out of Auschwitz. It is a common fallacy to think that the raw materials and parts came from Germany, but Germany around that time did not have the parts or the means of building a railroad track which was strong and sturdy as the ones that Prescott Bush provided. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. This railroad track you see right here was made from American lumber and American iron, which came from another railroad factory that Prescott Bush himself owned. The Skull and Bones fraternity from which used World War II to broker the Skull and Bones dynasty. Since World War II, the Skull and Bones have been responsible for almost every major tragedy that has taken place on American soil. Everything from the assassination of John F. Kennedy to Martin Luther King to 9/11, you name it, the Skull and Bones have had a hand behind it. That's right. Every major bad choice is because the corruption of this organization has filtered its way to even the electorate college the very people that basically decide who wins the election, who does not win the election of POTUS. The majority of them are all members of the Skull and Bones secret society. All the Bushes, J. Edgar Hoover, they've all served in this fraternity. Even the current George Bush. Which means one's got to think, what exactly are they capable of? Even LBJ was a skull. Even Donald Trump becoming president has been a direct result of the Skull and Bones secret society placing him in that position. The one area where they went wrong is that Donald Trump is a complete moron when it comes to politics. The man has no business being in this position whatsoever. But they figured his financial smarts and his ability to be and to influence people would turn back the tide, so that they can continue secretly running the country and secretly giving the American people the illusion that they run the country when they actually don't. But things fouled up big time. So Barack Obama was the monkey wrench in the works. He was not supposed to win the election. John McCain was. Upon becoming president, he threw out the Skull and Bones program. During his presidency, he actually ran the country just and fair and did his job properly, and did not stand and could not be bought off or influenced by the Skull and Bones secret society. He didn't fit into the fold of things. He actually matriculated from Chicago, in an area completely different from where the Skull and Bones secret society derives from. See, what Barack Obama did upon becoming president of the United States shoved the door open for every other non-white politician who wanted to have their go at Congress, the Senate, U.S. Senate, and President of the United States. He sat there and pretty much threw off the Skull and Bones secret society game plan. Hence why things are going the way they are today. This is said to have been predicted by this man, Sitting Bull, a chief and medicine man of the Oglala Lakota people. He said that one day the white man's influence will no longer be. Their power will wane and they will fall. It was right before those were the last words he spoke right before being murdered by his own people. See, it has long been predicted that the Native American people would one day have the retribution, but it wouldn't be a fast process, it would be a slow, gradual process. See, Sitting Bull was warned a long time ago not to use the ghost dance for war, for revolution, or retribution of any kind, but to use it as an ongoing prayer. Sitting Bull was warned by this man, Wofoka, a Paiute medicine man who traveled along the American countries from reservation to reservation, tribe to tribe, trying to spread a peaceful message, saying that if one dances the dance it will teach them, you will be free, the buffaloes will return, your ancestors will answer your call. However, a lot of the times people were so desperate for the times that they were given that they wanted instant gratification to what was going on. Everything from slaughter and murder to smallpox to being starved out and taken off their lands. You see, Wovoka knew that you could not turn back the tide of what was to come. He knew he could not stop the inevitable. But but he did give them, he tried giving our people, was a prayer, an ongoing song to give for us. They could cut our hair, they could take our braids, they could take all that stuff away. But in our heart, deep down, they couldn't change who we were. And they still cannot change who we are. You see, true freedom comes from within. And that's what he tried telling everybody. It's while you dance the ghost dance, you transcend time and space. It's the one time you're truly free and we are with our ancestors once again. That is the purpose behind the ghost dance, that and that alone. Not for violence, not for retribution. And the people most certainly took him quite literally. You see, Wovoka comes from a long line of what the First Nations people call the messenger, a spiritualist, a voice of reason to be heard out of the bunch, someone trying to speak reason into people. Throughout the last 500 years of history, there has always been a messenger among the Native American people. with each one passing down to another the vital messages and the vital wisdom and the tools needed to be that outcry, that articulate voice of reason and wisdom among the First Nations people that we needed in times of great chaos. See, the line of messengers among the First Nations people, or Native Americans, as you may call us, passes down from one person to another. No messengers of the same tribe. Usually, it's somebody totally the polar opposite of you. You meet them, you groom them, you train them, or you have those of your inner circle surround them and feed as much knowledge into their head as possible. When it's your time to die, they pick up the mantle. Upon Wowoka's death, John Trudell took his place, carrying the same message, and he was able to articulate the anger and the frustration of the Native American people as a whole. Fighting our cultural extinction was one of the main things he was trying to help prevent. He was very successful in his means of influencing people. However, throughout his life, he had been met with adversity and tragedy, much like Wovoka did. He had to witness death. And destruction of those around him. Despite his family being murdered in a fire on the Duck Valley Reservation back in 1979, John Trudell could have easily pulled another Che Guevara and started a revolution, but he did not. He did not use violence at all. He retaliated with words, wisdom, poetry, and music. And also is the very man responsible for the legalization of medical marijuana. Despite what happened to him, he saved millions of lives around America. In the summer of '93, in Rhinebeck, New York, John Trudell met who would be later on down the road his successor, the next messenger. He said to the small 11-year-old boy, "Nothing happens by chance. Everybody meets for a reason, and it is no mistake you are standing right here in front of me. But one day, when you're ready, you will be doing my job." Even the recent events that are taking place in America now, John Trudell predicted decades before they ever even happened. The little boy he met in Rhinebeck, New York, was me. I was nothing but a mere child when I met him. At the time, his face looked oddly familiar. I couldn't figure out who he was. It wasn't until the day he died that I finally figured out who I met that day when I was 11 years old. Toward the end of John's life, everybody in his inner circle trained me and groomed me and taught me everything that he would have, but he was too weak to teach me himself. Am I the messenger people were expecting? No. But most definitely, I'm not afraid of the job. One of the things I could tell you this much is that to do this, you have to not be afraid of tragedy, which is part of the reason why I made this video, to kind of give an explanation and sum everything up as to what's been going on. Violence is definitely not the answer. Uprising is not the answer. To have the retribution, our day of reckoning, would not be with fists or guns, but with love and wisdom. Even today, there are 2 congressmen, people in Congress, who are Native American. So yes, the power is waning. The writing is definitely on the wall, and Donald Trump can see it. Things are rapidly changing all over, and if we don't sit there and embrace that change and look for viable, positive solutions, things are going to get progressively worse. Even though there are plenty of Native American people and the struggle still goes on, and we're making headway with Congress, already when we say things are changing, a new tribe is now up and coming and brewing in American society today. The American Nomad Tribe. A society of people consisting of train hoppers, or people who live out of their RVs, and those who travel from place to place, who live without boundaries, who are basically unhinged of conventional homes in today's society. Very soon, a symbiotic relationship between both the nomad RV community and the Native American people is about to be born. One that protects both the native and those of the nomad community in America today. Because it is one definite thing. They said that one day that all the white man would turn and become of the Indian ways. That is a common prophecy that has been spoken among all the tribes for many years. So yes, the Native American influence on American culture is coming true, very slowly but surely. It started with Wovoka and the ghost hands, and telling him, pray, keep it up, eventually the spirits will answer. John Trudell tried carrying the message over and saying, we must sit there and articulately and educate ourselves to rise above it. And now I'm saying, we have to stay true and be strong and not be divided, if we're ever going to get through this. Like all of you, this very image and video angered me and caused a lot of disdain and animosity. But the more I look at it, the more my heart pours out to this teen, and the more I really feel for him. Because in many years of pain and ridicule and violence he will have to face from others who he has angered and offended is great. Already he hasn't reached the age of 18, and he's already ruined his entire future upon one simple, ignorant act. So yeah, to sum it all up, this very image right here represents the waning power and influence over the upper one class, white America, losing their power and influence over the masses of people. Right here, you see fear displaying itself in its ugliest form. Ignorant teenagers who will do just about anything to impress their parents or even to get Donald Trump's attention, which is the most hateful and horrible thing one can do. When I look at this, I think of the Nazi youth of World War II who once followed Hitler brazenly, ignorantly into battle, and he led them all to their deaths. And now each and every one of them today are hunted men, all simply because they wanted to impress Donald Trump and his dangerous rhetoric, which he very arrogantly feeds them without taking any responsibility of what comes out of his mouth or the influence he's putting upon them. They ignorantly follow him, not realizing he's ruining their entire future. Yes, my heart does go out to him, but this is what happens when you influence a large group of people and take no responsibility for the words that you put out there. I would tell anybody who watches this, learn from this. Learn from this and learn what to do and what not to do. But this is a prime example of what not to do. In the meantime, this is a member of the Voice of Reason. Aho! Like what you see? Click the subscribe button below and the fire bell looking thingy. Please help me get more subscribers. Get the message out.